Across the country, celebrations are being held to mark National Indigenous Peoples Day, which falls on June 21st every year. It's a day to not only celebrate, but to honor the contributions of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Canada has officially marked this day since 1996 after consultations and statements of support for such a day were made by various Indigenous groups. Indigenous communities across Canada are hosting events involving sunrise ceremonies, traditional dancing, music, and food. It is an especially important day to recognize Canada's history when it comes to the treatment of Indigenous peoples, learning from the past, and working towards reconciliation, as well as having the opportunity to appreciate the beauty and history of the rich cultures of Canada's Indigenous peoples. Well, joining us now to discuss National Indigenous Peoples Day is Mr. Frank Brown, a Heiltsuk Nation Hereditary Chief. Sir, welcome to Forum Daily.
Happy to be here. Happy Indigenous Peoples Day.
Happy to have you, sir. So what does this day mean to you?
This day means that the native people of this land aren't invisible. By Canada recognizing our people, it means that we're starting to move to our rightful place as the first peoples of this land. So I'm happy that we're doing it.
And we mentioned National Indigenous Peoples Day was set in Canada back in 1996. So do you have any fond memories or moments that may be brought up when you think about past National Indigenous Peoples Days?
Well, probably the first one, because I think there was selective memory or selective amnesia where there wasn't any recognition of our people. And a lot of the times when our stories were shared, it was negative, confrontational, or issues of social ill. So it's nice to come into the mainstream with a positive reflection. So I'm glad that this is happening.
And on that note of a positive reflection, we are seeing such beautiful ceremonies being held across the country today. It really provides Canadians an opportunity to appreciate Indigenous culture and talent. So what would you encourage our viewers to see or learn about on this day?
I think that every day is Indigenous Day in my world, and I think it's important for other Canadians, especially new Canadians, to learn, to take time to go to the libraries or go online and learn and reflect on the first peoples of this land. It creates the depth and breadth of understanding and meaning for this great country that we all reside in.
All right, sir. Now, although this is a day to celebrate, we know Canada's dark past and its treatment of Indigenous peoples and its impact on communities to this day will always be something that we need to remember as we work towards reconciliation. So, what kind of opportunities does this day provide for officials in terms of learning and improving Canada's relationship with Indigenous peoples?
Well, I can't speak for anybody else, but my own lived experience. I went to the Bella Bella Indian Day School where I'm calling from, and my parents and grandparents went to residential school. They were taken away from our communities. We're in a fly-in, boat-in only community in the middle of the Pacific Northwest coast here on the west coast of Canada. And so our collective memory as a community isn't a positive one. It was negative, and it was enacted through discriminatory legislation that was separating children from their families and Native people from their land. And so we are turning a page in this history. In order to move forward, we have to understand what happened. And it was a horrific acts of genocide. That's how it was characterized by Truth and Reconciliation, the body of work that was done that catalyzed Indigenous Peoples Day to reflect on this horrific history so that we can never forget and that we can move forward in a good way as the body politic.
All right, Mr. Brown, just a quick 30 seconds left here, but if you could leave us with maybe one message on this National Indigenous Peoples Day, what would it be?
I think we've got some really pressing issues in society today on the West Coast. We're dealing with atmospheric rivers, decline of salmon, and I think people have to listen to the Indigenous place-based people. We have something to offer around how we're going to navigate this great uncertainty that the human family is dealing with around climate change and biodiversity loss. And I hope that our insights and our warnings are heeded so that we can all have a future for our next generations.
All right, Mr. Brown, thank you again for joining us today on Forum Daily.
Thank you for the opportunity to share an Indigenous worldview and an insight. Greetings from the Heiltsuk Nation from Bella Bella, BC.
Thank you, sir. We'll be right back.